The digital clock on the dashboard read 1:47 a.m. when I finally stopped crying long enough to notice where I was. Somehow, my aimless driving had brought me to the parking garage beneath Vincenzo Torre Enterprises, the gleaming corporate building that housed the legitimate face of my uncle's employer. I should not have been here. Should not have used the access card Uncle Tony had given me for emergencies. But at 1:47 in the morning, with nowhere else to go, and no one else to turn to, this cold concrete structure felt like the only place in the world where I might be safe. My name is Sofia Romano, and 12 hours ago, I had a completely different life. I was a 24-year-old graduate student finishing my master's degree in social work, living in a modest apartment near the university, planning a future dedicated to helping vulnerable children navigate the foster care system. I had hope. I had purpose. I had a fiancé named Derek, who I thought loved me. 12 hours ago, everything made sense. Now, sitting in my beat-up Honda Civic in the lowest level of this parking garage, my left eye swollen nearly shut, my ribs screaming with every breath, blood dried on my split lip, I understood that the life I thought I had was built on lies, and the person I thought I knew best had revealed himself to be a monster. The first blow had come out of nowhere. Derek and I had been arguing about wedding plans, something stupid and insignificant that I could not even remember now. I had disagreed with something he wanted, spoken my opinion the way I always had, except this time, instead of the usual frustration or eye roll, his fist had connected with my face with such force that I had fallen backward into our coffee table, shattering it. The shock had been almost worse than the pain. Derek had never hit me before, never even raised his hand. We had been together for 3 years, engaged for 6 months. I thought I knew him completely, but the man who stood over me, rage distorting his features into something unrecognizable, was a stranger. What followed was a nightmare I still could not fully process. More blows. Kicks when I tried to curl into a protective ball. His voice, once so loving, now spewing venom as he told me exactly what he thought of me, my opinions, my independence, my existence. The attack had felt endless, though it probably lasted less than 5 minutes. When he finally stopped, breathing hard and looking at his hands like he did not recognize them, I had seized my chance, grabbed my keys and phone. Run. I should have gone to a hospital, should have called the police, should have done any number of logical, rational things, but I was not thinking logically. I was operating on pure survival instinct, and that instinct had driven me here, to the one place that felt even remotely connected to safety. Uncle Tony worked here. Uncle Tony, who had raised me after my parents died when I was 8, who had been more father than uncle, who worked as the personal driver for Vincenzo Gatti, a man whose name was whispered with fear and respect in equal measure throughout the city. I knew what Vincenzo Gatti was. Everyone did, even if no one said it out loud. The Torre Enterprises building was just a front for more lucrative, less legal operations. Vincenzo was not just a businessman. He was the head of the most powerful crime family in the region, a position he had inherited from his father and expanded with ruthless efficiency. Uncle Tony never talked about his work directly, but over the years, I had picked up enough to understand that being Vincenzo's driver was not just about operating a vehicle. It was about loyalty, discretion, and protection. It was about being trusted with secrets and information that could destroy lives. And Uncle Tony had earned that trust over 20 years of service. I had met Vincenzo Gatti exactly twice in my life, once when I was 12, and Uncle Tony had brought me to the office to show me where he worked. Vincenzo had been kind in a distant way, giving me a tour of the legitimate offices and telling me I had my uncle's eyes. The second time was at my college graduation 2 years ago, when Vincenzo had appeared unexpectedly with an expensive gift, a first-edition book on child psychology, inscribed with a note about following my dreams. Both times, I had been struck by how different he seemed from his reputation. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with dark hair graying at the temples and features that would have been classically handsome, if not for the hardness in his eyes. He dressed impeccably, spoke with quiet authority, and exuded the kind of power that made people instinctively step aside. But with me, he had been almost gentle, respectful, as if my connection to Uncle Tony made me somehow untouchable, sacred. I did not know what I expected to find here at 1:47 in the morning. Uncle Tony would not be working this late. The building would be locked, secured by systems I could not bypass. But sitting in this parking garage, in the space where Uncle Tony had parked thousands of times, felt closer to safety than anywhere else I could think of. I was wiping blood from my face with the bottom of my shirt when I heard it. The low purr of an expensive engine echoing through the concrete structure. Headlights swept across my car as a black Mercedes pulled into the garage, heading toward the executive parking spaces. I froze, praying whoever it was would not notice my modest car tucked in the corner. But the Mercedes slowed, then stopped. The engine cut off. A car door opened and closed with that solid, expensive sound that cheap cars never made. Footsteps approached my vehicle, measured and unhurried. A knock on my window made me jump, a small cry of pain escaping as the movement jarred my injured ribs. Miss Romano. The voice was unmistakable, deep, controlled, with just a hint of an Italian accent. Vincenzo Gatti. Step out of the car, please. I should have been terrified. Terrified of being discovered in his private garage. Terrified of this man whose power and danger were legendary. But instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. Because if Vincenzo was here, Uncle Tony could not be far behind. And Uncle Tony would know what to do. Would fix this somehow. Would make the nightmare stop. I opened the car door, slowly, every movement sending fresh waves of pain through my battered body. As I emerged into the fluorescent lighting of the garage, I heard Vincenzo's sharp intake of breath. He was standing a few feet away, dressed in a dark suit despite the late hour, looking every inch the powerful man he was. But as his eyes took in my face, my split lip, my swelling eye, the defensive way I was holding my ribs, something changed in his expression. The carefully maintained neutrality shattered, replaced by something dark and dangerous. Who did this to you? His voice was quiet, almost conversational, but I heard the fury beneath it, the barely restrained violence. I tried to speak, but my split lip made words difficult, and suddenly, the tears I thought I had exhausted came flooding back. I had been holding myself together through sheer force of will, but Vincenzo's question, asked with such controlled rage on my behalf, broke something inside me. I collapsed, not physically, though my legs did buckle, but emotionally. All the terror and pain and disbelief of the past 12 hours came pouring out in great, racking sobs that hurt my ribs, but I could not stop. Vincenzo moved quickly, catching me before I could fall completely. His hands were surprisingly gentle as he steadied me, careful not to touch anywhere that looked injured. Easy. His voice was softer now. I have you. You are safe, but I need you to tell me who did this. I tried to form words, but all that came out were more sobs. Vincenzo made a sound of frustration, then carefully guided me to lean against my car, supporting my weight while pulling out his phone. Tony. His voice shifted to crisp command mode. I do not care what time it is. Get to my private garage immediately. Your niece is here and she is hurt. Yes. Now. He ended the call and turned his full attention back to me. His dark eyes, usually so cold and calculating, held something I had not expected to see. Genuine concern. Maybe even fear. Sophia. The use of my first name was unexpected, intimate. I need you to breathe. Slow, steady breaths. Can you do that for me? I tried. Failed. Tried again. Gradually, my breathing slowed enough that I could form words. Derek. I managed to whisper. My fiancé. He hurt me. Your fiancé did this? Vincenzo's voice had gone deadly quiet. The man you were going to marry? I nodded, fresh tears streaming down my face. Vincenzo's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching beneath his skin. I saw his free hand, the one not steadying me, curl into a fist so tight his knuckles went white. Where is he now? Do you know? Home. Our apartment. I ran. I did not know where else to go. I ended up here. You did the right thing. Vincenzo's eyes never left my face. You are safe now. I promise you that. But I need to know, did you go to a hospital? Call the police? I shook my head. Should have. But I just ran. I was scared he would follow. Scared he would. I could not finish the sentence. He would what, Sophia? What were you afraid he would do? The question was gentle but insistent. And suddenly, I realized what I had been too terrified to articulate even to myself. The look in Derek's eyes at the end of the attack, the way he had stared at his hands, the words he had said that I had not fully processed in my panic to escape. I leaned closer to Vincenzo, my voice dropping to barely a whisper, as if saying it too loudly would make it more real. He said next time he would not stop, that he would make sure I never spoke back to him again. He said, the words caught in my throat, he said he should have killed me while he had the chance. Vincenzo went absolutely still, not the stillness of calm, but of barely leashed violence. When he finally spoke, his voice was so cold it could have frozen fire. He will never get that chance. I swear to you, Sophia Romano, on everything I hold sacred, that man will never hurt you again. The absolute certainty in his voice should have frightened me. I knew what a promise like that meant from a man like Vincenzo Gatti, but instead, I felt that same unexpected relief. Someone believed me. Someone with the power to ensure Derek could never hurt me again was promising protection. The sound of tires on concrete announced Uncle Tony's arrival. His car, the same black Mercedes Vincenzo drove but slightly less expensive, screeched to a stop beside us. Uncle Tony practically fell out of the vehicle, his face pale with panic. "Sophia," he rushed over, taking in my injuries with the same sharp intake of breath Vincenzo had made. "Oh, baby girl, what happened? Who did this?" "Her fiancé." Vincenzo answered before I could. "Derek," she said his name was. "He beat her and threatened to kill her. She has been driving around for hours before ending up here." Uncle Tony's face transformed. I had seen him angry before, but never like this. Never with this kind of cold, lethal fury that made him suddenly look like someone capable of terrible things. "Where is he?" Uncle Tony's voice was shaking. "Where is this piece of garbage who hurt my girl?" "Tony." Vincenzo's voice carried a warning. "We handle this correctly. First, we get Sophia medical attention. Then we deal with Derek." "I do not need a hospital," I protested weakly. Just somewhere safe, somewhere he cannot find me. "You need a doctor." Vincenzo was already texting someone. "I have a private physician who will come to my penthouse. No hospitals, no records, no paper trail. You will stay with me until this is resolved." "That is not negotiable, Sophia." The idea of staying with Vincenzo Gatti should have been terrifying. But at 1:53 in the morning, battered and terrified, I could only feel grateful that someone was taking control. Someone was telling me what to do so I did not have to figure it out myself. Uncle Tony helped me into Vincenzo's car while Vincenzo drove Uncle Tony's Mercedes. The drive to Vincenzo's penthouse took 15 minutes, but felt both endless and instantaneous. Uncle Tony held my hand the entire time, his grip tight enough to hurt, but I did not complain. His presence was an anchor, keeping me from floating away into shock. Vincenzo's penthouse was exactly what I expected, and nothing like I imagined simultaneously. Located in the most expensive building downtown, it occupied the entire top floor. The decor was elegant, but not ostentatious. All clean lines and neutral colors with carefully selected art that probably cost more than I would earn in a lifetime. But it also felt lived in. Books on the coffee table, a jacket draped over a chair, small details that suggested this was not just a showplace, but an actual home. Vincenzo guided me to a sofa while Uncle Tony hovered anxiously. The doctor, a woman in her 50s named Dr. Chen, arrived within 20 minutes, bringing a medical bag and asking no questions about why she was treating a battered young woman in a mob boss's penthouse at 2 in the morning. She was professional and gentle as she examined my injuries. Broken rib, most likely 2. Severe bruising. Split lip that might need stitches. Possible concussion. Damage that would heal but would take time and care. "You are very lucky, Doctor," Chen said as she taped my ribs. "Injuries like this could have been much worse. But you need rest, ice, pain medication, and absolutely no stress." The last part made me want to laugh hysterically. No stress. As if that were possible with my life in shambles and my fiancé having revealed himself as someone who wanted me dead. After Dr. Chen left, Vincenzo showed me to a guest bedroom that was larger than my entire apartment. Uncle Tony brought me clothes from the selection Vincenzo kept for unexpected guests. Soft pajamas that were probably more expensive than anything I owned. "I will be right outside," Uncle Tony said, his voice thick with emotion. "If you need anything at all, you just call. Understand?" "I understand." I hugged him carefully, mindful of my ribs. "Thank you, Uncle Tony, for everything." After he left, I stood in the enormous bedroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. The woman looking back was barely recognizable, not just because of the physical injuries, though those were shocking enough, but because something fundamental had changed. I had walked into my apartment that evening as one person and walked out as someone entirely different. Someone who now knew that love could hide monsters, that the man you planned to marry could try to kill you, that safety was an illusion, and trust was dangerous. I did not sleep that night, just lay in the enormous bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything in my mind, trying to find the signs I had missed, the red flags that must have been there but I had not seen or had explained away, trying to understand how I had been so blind. At 6 a.m., there was a soft knock on my door. I opened it to find Vincenzo, still dressed from the night before, holding a cup of tea. "I thought you might be awake," he said quietly. "May I come in?" I nodded, stepping aside. Vincenzo entered, handing me the tea before gesturing to the sitting area near the window. "We need to discuss what happens next," he began once we were seated. "You cannot return to your apartment. It is not safe. Your fiancé knows where you live, and I do not trust that he will not attempt to find you. I have nowhere else to go. The reality of my situation was crushing. My apartment was in both our names. Most of my money was in a joint account. My friends were shared friends who would want to know what happened, and I could not face explaining it yet. You stay here. Vincenzo's statement left no room for argument. For as long as necessary, I have plenty of space, and you will be protected. My security is extensive. I cannot impose on you like that. I protested weakly. You barely know me. I am just your driver's niece. Something flickered across Vincenzo's face at that statement. You are not just anything, Sophia. You are Tony's family, which makes you my responsibility. He has served me loyally for 20 years. The least I can do is ensure his niece is safe. There was something in his tone that suggested there was more he was not saying, but I was too exhausted to push. What about Derek? I asked. What are you going to do? What needs to be done? Vincenzo's voice was cold. But you do not need to worry about the details. You need to focus on healing, on resting, on understanding that what happened was not your fault. How can it not be my fault? The words burst out before I could stop them. I must have done something, said something, pushed him somehow too. I stopped, hearing how I sounded, the victim blaming herself for her abuser's choices. No. Vincenzo leaned forward, his dark eyes intense. Listen to me very carefully, Sophia. There is nothing you could have said or done that justified what he did to you. Nothing. He made a choice to hurt you. That choice was his alone. You are not responsible for his violence. Do you understand? I wanted to believe him, wanted to accept that truth, but years of social work education about abuse patterns could not override the voices in my head, questioning what I could have done differently. Over the next few days, I existed in a strange limbo. Vincenzo's penthouse became my sanctuary and prison simultaneously. I was safe, protected by security systems and armed guards I never saw but knew were there. But I was also trapped, unable to return to my normal life, unable to move forward because the trauma kept pulling me back. Uncle Tony visited daily, bringing things from my apartment, carefully selected so Derek would not notice anything major missing. Books, clothes, my laptop, small pieces of my life smuggled out like contraband. Vincenzo was surprisingly present. I had expected him to delegate my care to staff, to treat me like a responsibility he checked off a list. Instead, he checked on me several times a day, made sure I was eating, even when I had no appetite, sat with me when the silence became unbearable, never pushed for conversation, but was available when I needed to talk. It was on the 4th day when I finally asked the question that had been building. What did you do to Derek? Vincenzo had been reading the newspaper at the kitchen table while I picked at breakfast. He set down the paper and met my eyes. I had a conversation with him about his future in this city, about the consequences of his actions, about how difficult life becomes for men who hurt women under my protection. Did you? I struggled with how to ask. Did you hurt him? If you enjoyed Sophia's story so far, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me create more content like this. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another story. Thank you. And now let us continue with Vincenzo's answer. I ensured he understood the gravity of his mistake. Vincenzo's tone was careful. He will not bother you again, Sophia. He has left the city and will not return. You have my word on that. How can you be sure? Because I made the alternative very clear to him. The coldness in Vincenzo's voice reminded me exactly who I was dealing with. He knows that if he attempts to contact you, if he comes within 100 miles of you, if he even speaks your name, there will be consequences he will not survive. I should have been horrified, should have condemned the implied violence, but instead, I felt only relief. Derek was gone, could not hurt me again. The man who had promised to love me, and instead had tried to destroy me, would face consequences for his actions. In Vincenzo's world, justice was swift and permanent. Thank you, I whispered, for protecting me, for everything. You do not need to thank me. Vincenzo's expression softened slightly. But you do need to start thinking about your future, what you want to do, where you want to go from here. I do not know. The admission felt like failure. I had always been so certain about my path. Graduate degree, career helping foster children, marriage, family. Now all of that felt contaminated by what Derek had revealed about himself and my inability to see it, then figure it out. Here, safe. Take as much time as you need. Vincenzo stood, preparing to leave for whatever business required his attention. But Sophia, one more thing. Yes, the social work degree you are completing. That is still important to you? I do not know. Can I really help vulnerable children when I could not even recognize the danger in my own life? The ability to recognize danger in others often comes from experience with it ourselves. Vincenzo's words held unexpected wisdom. Your trauma does not disqualify you from your calling. It might make you better at it, more empathetic, more determined to protect those who cannot protect themselves. After he left, I sat with those words. Could my nightmare experience become something useful? Could I transform this pain into purpose? The idea felt impossible in that moment, but it planted a seed that would grow in the weeks to come. As days turned into weeks, I began to heal, physically first. The bruises faded from purple to yellow to gone. My ribs stopped screaming with every breath. My split lip healed. Dr. Chen visited regularly, monitoring my recovery and prescribing medication for anxiety that had predictably developed after the trauma. Emotionally was harder. I had nightmares most nights, waking up convinced Derek was in the room, had panic attacks triggered by unexpected noises, flinched when Uncle Tony moved too quickly, existed in a constant state of hypervigilance that was exhausting, but impossible to turn off. Vincenzo noticed everything, and surprisingly, he seemed to understand in ways I did not expect. He moved carefully around me, telegraphing his movements, knocked before entering rooms, asked permission before getting close, created space for my trauma without making me feel broken or weak. It was late one night, about 3 weeks into my stay, when I found Vincenzo on the balcony, staring out at the city lights with a glass of scotch in his hand. I had been unable to sleep, nightmares again, and had wandered out hoping fresh air might help. "Cannot sleep?" he asked without turning around. "Never can anymore." I moved to stand beside him, keeping enough distance to feel safe. The nightmares are persistent. They will fade with time, though they may never disappear completely. Trauma has a way of marking us permanently. You sound like you speak from experience. Vincenzo took a sip of his scotch, then set the glass on the railing. "I do, though my trauma was different from yours. Will you tell me about it?" I was not sure where the boldness came from. Maybe it was the darkness, the late hour, the feeling of being suspended outside normal time and rules. For a long moment, I thought he would refuse. Then he began speaking, his voice low and distant. "My wife, Angelina, was killed 6 years ago, murdered by rivals who wanted to hurt me. She was," he paused, "she was everything good in my world. The only person who saw past what I am, what I do, to who I might have been in a different life. I am so sorry." The words felt inadequate. For a long time after she died, I was, not myself, reckless, angry. I made decisions based on emotion rather than strategy. Nearly destroyed everything my family had built over 3 generations. And the nightmares. Vincenzo turned to look at me. They came every night for 2 years. Sometimes still do. The vulnerability in his confession was unexpected and precious. This powerful, dangerous man was trusting me with his pain, recognizing mine through the lens of his own. How did you survive it? How did you keep going? By accepting that healing is not linear, that you can take 3 steps forward and 2 back and still be making progress, by giving myself permission to grieve without timeline or expectation, and by finding purpose in protecting others so they do not have to experience what I did. His words settled over me like a blanket. Permission to not be okay, to heal at my own pace, to transform trauma into something meaningful. "Is that why you have been so kind to me?" I asked. "Because I remind you of her?" "No." Vincenzo's answer was immediate. "You remind me of myself, after, lost, broken, trying to figure out how to exist in a world that has fundamentally changed. I see my own pain reflected in yours, and he struggled with the words. "I want to help you through it in ways no one helped me. Thank you for seeing me, for being here when I need someone to understand." We stood in comfortable silence for several minutes before Vincenzo spoke again. "I need to tell you something. About Derek. About what really happened." My stomach clenched. "What do you mean?" "When I said I had a conversation with him, that was not entirely accurate. The truth is more complicated." He pulled out his phone, opening a video file. The footage showed Derek in what looked like a warehouse, surrounded by several large men. Derek was crying, begging, clearly terrified. "I did not touch him," Vincenzo said as the video played. "Did not have him hurt, but I showed him what I could do, what I would do if he ever came near you again. I showed him men I have, dealt with, who crossed lines similar to his, and I made very clear that his choice was simple. Leave the city and never return, or become one of those examples." The video showed Derek literally begging for his life, promising never to contact me, accepting any terms Vincenzo set. It was disturbing and satisfying simultaneously. "I wanted you to see this." Vincenzo turned off the video. "So you would know that your safety is not based on his goodwill or change of heart. It is based on his terror of what I will do if he violates the terms I set. You are protected not by hope, but by certainty." Does that make you the monster everyone says you are? I asked, using fear as a weapon. Perhaps. Vincenzo met my eyes. I have done terrible things, Sophia. I will not pretend otherwise, but I reserve my violence for those who deserve it, for those who hurt the innocent, for those who prey on the vulnerable. Derek deserved to be terrified, deserved to understand the magnitude of his crime against you. I should have been repulsed, should have condemned his methods, but I was not living in a world of should anymore. I was living in reality, where the man who hurt me faced no legal consequences because I had not reported it, but faced very real consequences from someone willing to operate outside the law. Thank you, I said again, for being the kind of monster who protects people like me from monsters like Derek. Something shifted in Vincenzo's expression. If I am a monster, then so be it. But I am your monster, Sophia Romano, for as long as you need me to be. The declaration should have been possessive, threatening. Instead, it felt like the safest promise anyone had ever made me. Over the following months, my relationship with Vincenzo evolved into something neither of us had anticipated. I was no longer just his driver's niece seeking temporary shelter. I had become something else. Friend did not quite capture it. Neither did protector and protected. We existed in a space between definitions, bonded by trauma and understanding, and the strange intimacy that comes from being vulnerable with someone who truly sees you. I completed my master's degree remotely, Vincenzo ensuring I had everything needed to finish my coursework without returning to campus where Derek's friends still existed. My thesis on trauma-informed foster care became infused with my own experiences, lending it an authenticity that my advisor said was powerful and necessary. I also started accompanying Uncle Tony occasionally when he drove Vincenzo to business meetings. Not as an employee, but as company. Vincenzo claimed my presence made the drives less tedious. Uncle Tony claimed Vincenzo's mood was better when I was there. I suspected they were both making excuses because all three of us had grown accustomed to my presence and found its absence uncomfortable. It was during one of these drives, about 5 months after that first night at 1:47 a.m., when everything changed again. We were returning from a meeting when we passed a car accident. Nothing major, just a fender bender. But one of the drivers, a young woman, was being berated by the other driver, a man twice her size who was clearly trying to intimidate her. "Stop the car," I said suddenly. Vincenzo and Uncle Tony both looked at me in surprise. Why? Because that man is trying to bully that woman into accepting blame for something that is probably not her fault. And I cannot just drive past that. Vincenzo studied me for a moment, then nodded to Uncle Tony, who pulled over. I was out of the car before it had fully stopped, walking toward the scene with Vincenzo following a step behind. "Is there a problem here?" I asked, keeping my voice calm but firm. The man turned, clearly prepared to dismiss me. But then he saw Vincenzo behind me, and his entire demeanor changed. Anyone in this city who paid attention knew Vincenzo Gotti by sight. "No problem," the man said quickly, stepping back. "Just discussing the accident. It looked like you were discussing it rather aggressively." I turned to the young woman. "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" She was shaking, clearly terrified. He said I hit him, but I did not. He ran the stop sign. But he said if I do not accept blame, he will." She could not finish. "Will what?" Vincenzo's voice was cold. "Please, finish that sentence." The man was backing toward his car now. "Nothing. It was nothing. I will file a regular insurance claim. No problem. I think you should do more than that," I said, surprising myself with my own boldness. "I think you should apologize to this young woman for trying to intimidate her, and then you should drive away and never attempt something like this again." The man looked at Vincenzo, who simply nodded once. That nod was enough. The man stammered an apology to the woman and drove away so fast he probably broke several traffic laws. "Thank you," the young woman said once he was gone. I did not know what to do. He was so angry, and I was scared, and She started crying. "I know." I took her hands, grounding her. "I know exactly how that feels. Being scared, being intimidated by someone bigger and stronger who is using that advantage to hurt you. But you are safe now. Do you have someone you can call? Someone who can stay with you?" We helped her call a friend, waited until that friend arrived, then continued home. Vincenzo was quiet for most of the drive, watching me with an expression I could not quite read. "That was well done," he said finally. "You helped her in a way police probably could not have, made her feel safe, validated her fear, and her right to be upset. That is what I want to do." The realization hit me fully. Not just write about helping people, actually help them. Use my experience and my understanding to make a difference for those who are scared and vulnerable and do not know where to turn. Then do it. Vincenzo's voice held conviction. "You have the education. You have the experience. You have the empathy and the strength. What is stopping you? Resources, money, space, the usual obstacles. Not obstacles, logistics, which can be solved. He pulled out his phone, typing something. I have a building downtown, currently vacant. It could be converted into whatever you need. Office space, meeting rooms, a place where people can come for help without judgment or barriers. I cannot accept something like that. It is too much. You are not accepting it. You are earning it. Work for me. Officially, use that building to help people, particularly women in situations similar to yours. Be the resource you needed but did not have. I will fund it, protect it, and ensure it can operate without the usual bureaucratic obstacles. Why would you do this? Because 6 years ago, my wife was hurt, and I could not protect her. Because 3 months ago, you showed up broken in my parking garage and I saw a chance to do better. Because you remind me that purpose can come from pain. And because he met my eyes. Because you have become important to me, Sophia. Your happiness, your healing, your ability to help others. That matters to me. The confession was stunning in its honesty. Vincenzo Gotti, feared mob boss, admitting that the broken woman he found crying at 1:47 a.m. had become someone he cared about, someone whose well-being mattered beyond obligation or duty. I do not know what to say. Say yes. Say you will let me help you build something meaningful. Say you trust me enough to work together on this. Yes, the word felt like stepping off a cliff. Yes to all of it. The center opened 6 months later. 3 floors of renovated space dedicated to helping women, particularly those escaping domestic violence, navigate resources and rebuild their lives. We called it the Phoenix Center, symbolizing rising from ashes. I ran the day-to-day operations, using my social work degree to coordinate services and provide support. Vincenzo funded it completely, asking nothing in return except regular updates on our successes. Word spread quickly. Within months, we were helping dozens of women every week. Some needed just information. Others needed safe housing, which Vincenzo provided through properties he owned, but never advertised. A few needed more direct intervention, the kind that required someone powerful, making certain people understand that harming our clients would have consequences. Vincenzo never refused. If someone came to the Phoenix Center seeking help, they received it. No judgment, no barriers, no questions about whether they deserved assistance. Just support from people who understood what it meant to be vulnerable and alone. My relationship with Vincenzo continued to evolve. We worked together, lived in the same building. I had moved into a penthouse on the floor below his. Spent most evenings together, talking about the center or books or philosophy or nothing at all. Uncle Tony joked that we were basically married without the paperwork. I told him that was ridiculous, but I was not sure he was entirely wrong. It was nearly a year after that night at 1:47 a.m. when Vincenzo asked me to dinner at an upscale restaurant. Not unusual. We ate together frequently, but something about the way he asked felt different, more formal, more weighted with significance. I wore a dress Vincenzo had bought me, one of many gifts I had stopped protesting. Dark green silk that made me feel elegant and confident. My physical scars had long since healed. The emotional ones were still there, probably always would be, but they had softened into something I could carry without being crushed by the weight. Vincenzo was already at the table when I arrived, dressed in a dark suit that emphasized his powerful build. He stood as I approached, pulling out my chair with old-world courtesy. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "That color suits you." "Thank you." I settled into my seat, hyper-aware suddenly of the intimate atmosphere. This feels different. Is something wrong? Nothing is wrong. In fact, everything is right. More right than I expected when I found you crying in my parking garage a year ago. Has it really been a year? Time felt both compressed and expanded. That night seemed like yesterday, and a lifetime ago simultaneously. A year since I found you broken. 6 months since we opened the Phoenix Center. Countless days of watching you heal, grow, become the person you were always meant to be. Vincenzo's dark eyes were intense. "I need to tell you something, Sophia. Something I have been trying to find the right words for." My heart started racing. Whatever this was, it felt significant. When Angelina died, I thought that part of my life was over, that I would never again feel anything beyond duty and obligation. I had resigned myself to existing rather than living, and then you appeared, terrified and hurt, whispering words that shattered me because they showed me what I had become, what I could still prevent. "What did I whisper?" I asked, realizing I did not remember the exact words. "You whispered, 'I do not want to die.' You were in so much pain, so terrified, and you whispered those 4 words like a prayer. I do not want to die. And something in me broke, Sophia, because Angelina had no choice. She died because I could not protect her. But you had fought to live, had driven for hours, had found safety. And I realized in that moment that I had been given a second chance, not to save Angelina, but to save you, to protect someone when it actually mattered. I had no memory of saying those words, but they sounded right, like something I would have whispered in my darkest moment. You did save me, I said quietly, in more ways than just that night, and you saved me. You reminded me what it feels like to care about someone, to worry about their well-being, to want their happiness more than your own. Over this past year, you have become— Vincenzo stopped, struggling with words. You have become essential to me, Sophia, not as Tony's niece, not as a responsibility, but as you. He reached across the table, taking my hand. His touch was warm, solid, grounding. I love you. The words were simple, but carried the weight of everything unspoken between us. I love your strength, your compassion, your determination to help others despite your own pain, your ability to see beyond what I am to who I might be. I love you, Sophia Romano, and I need you to know that. The confession should have been shocking, should have felt like it came from nowhere, but it did not, because I had been falling in love with Vincenzo Gotti for months without acknowledging it, had been calling it gratitude, or friendship, or trauma bonding, had been using every excuse to avoid admitting that the man who found me at my lowest point had become the person I could not imagine living without. I love you too. The admission felt like freedom. I have loved you for months but was afraid to say it, afraid it was just gratitude or dependency or something unhealthy. But it is not. It is real. You are the person who taught me I could survive, could heal, could build something meaningful from trauma. You are the person I want to share victories with, the person whose opinion matters most, the person I cannot imagine not loving. Vincenzo stood, moving around the table to pull me into his arms. The embrace was gentle, mindful of memories of violence, but also firm, solid, real. I promise you. His voice was low, fierce. I will never hurt you, will never raise my hand to you, will protect you with everything I am and everything I have. You are safe with me, Sophia. Always. I know. And it was true. I did know. Vincenzo had proven over and over that despite his reputation, despite his violence toward those who deserved it, he was incapable of harming those he loved. I was safer with a mob boss who adored me than I had ever been with a supposedly normal man who had tried to kill me. If you have been enjoying Sophia and Vincenzo's story, please subscribe to this channel and hit that like button. Your support helps me create more content like this. Turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now, let us see where their love leads. We married 6 months later, in a private ceremony at Vincenzo's estate. Uncle Tony walked me down the aisle, tears streaming down his face as he gave his blessing to a union he claimed to have predicted from that first night. The guest list was small: Vincenzo's family and close associates, a few friends from the Phoenix Center, people who understood that our love story was unconventional but real. My vows were simple. You found me at my lowest point and showed me I could rise. You protected me when I was vulnerable. You supported me when I was lost. You loved me when I thought I was unlovable. I promised to be your partner, your equal, your home, for whatever comes next. Vincenzo's vows made me cry. You whispered that you did not want to die, and in saving you, you saved me. You reminded me that life is for living, that love is possible even after loss, that purpose can come from pain. I promise to protect you always, to support your dreams, to love you with everything I am. You are my second chance, Sophia, my unexpected gift. My home. Our life together was not conventional. Vincenzo still ran his empire, still made decisions I did not always agree with. I still ran the Phoenix Center, still helped women escape dangerous situations using resources that were not always legally obtained. We existed in moral gray areas, doing good through occasionally questionable means, but we were honest about it. Honest with each other about the compromises we made, about the lines we walked, about the fact that we had both been broken and found each other in the wreckage and built something new. The Phoenix Center thrived. In 3 years, we helped over 2,000 women escape abuse, find resources, rebuild their lives. We expanded to include legal aid, mental health services, job training. We became a model that other cities studied and tried to replicate, all funded by Vincenzo's empire, all existing because a mob boss had found a broken woman crying at 1:47 a.m. and decided her life mattered. Uncle Tony retired from driving when I got pregnant with our first child, a daughter we named Angelina, after Vincenzo's first wife. He had been hesitant about the name, worried it would hurt me, but I insisted. Angelina had been important to him, had shaped who he became. Honoring her memory was not a betrayal of our love, but an acknowledgement that we could love multiple people in different ways. Little Angelina arrived healthy and perfect, and watching Vincenzo hold her for the first time, I saw the last piece of him heal. The guilt he still carried about not protecting his first wife dissolved in the face of this new life he could protect, this second chance at fatherhood, at building a family. We had 2 more children over the next 5 years, a son named Antonio, after Uncle Tony, another daughter named Elena, after Vincenzo's mother. Our home was full of chaos and laughter and love, unconventional love built on unusual foundations, but real nonetheless. Now, 10 years after that night at 1:47 a.m., I stand in the Phoenix Center, helping another young woman who arrived broken and terrified. She reminds me of myself, that same look of disbelief that someone she loved could hurt her, that same desperate hope that maybe there is a way forward. You are safe here, I tell her, taking her hands the way someone once took mine. I know it does not feel like it. Know the world feels like it has ended, but I promise you this is not the end. This is complicated, but you will survive. You will heal. You will build something beautiful from this pain. She looks at me like she wants to believe but cannot quite manage it. I understand. I could not believe it either when people said similar things to me, but I have proof now. Proof that trauma can transform into purpose, that the person who hurts you does not get to define you, that finding yourself at rock bottom at 1:47 a.m. can be the beginning of the life you were always meant to live. My name is Sofia Gatti, and a decade ago, I was found crying in a parking garage by a man whose reputation said he was a monster. What I whispered to him that night, I do not want to die, shattered something in him, reminded him of his own losses and failures, made him see me not as an obligation, but as a person worth saving. He saved me, and in saving me, I saved him. We saved each other. Our love story is not conventional, is not simple, is not something that would work for everyone, but it is ours, built on trauma and understanding, and the recognition that sometimes the right person finds you at exactly the moment you most need to be found. The Mafia boss found his driver's niece crying at 1:47 a.m. What she whispered shattered him. But from that shattering came something neither of us expected. Love, purpose, healing. A life neither of us could have built alone, but together created into something extraordinary. Thank you for joining me on this journey through my story with Vincenzo. If it touched you, please share it with others. Stories about unexpected love, about healing through trauma, about finding purpose in pain. These stories matter. They remind us that we are not defined by our worst moments, that love can come from unexpected places, that being broken is not the same as being destroyed, that sometimes the person who saves you is someone you never expected, and the life you build together is more beautiful than anything you could have imagined alone. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for believing that even in our darkest moments, at 1:47 a.m. when we are crying and lost, someone might find us, someone might see us, someone might decide we are worth saving, and that decision can change everything.